Dr. Manhattan versus Molecule Man. Two of the most powerful beings in all of comics. Two universal, multiversal gods. Well, they're going at it today. And in this epic fight between the two, well, who's ultimately going to be coming out on top? Who's going to win it all? Well, let's get into it. Dr. Manhattan, also known as John Osterman, was just your average physicist until he became a being with god-like powers. His origin story starts in Watchmen, a classic series that will really make you question your own existence. In this story, John Osterman was working in his laboratory when he got caught in an intrinsic field subtractor, which is just a fancy way of saying he was disintegrated and killed. But then he was reassembled again on a quantum level, giving him god-like powers. So what are Dr. Manhattan's powers, you might be asking? Good question. Well, for starters, he can manipulate matter and energy, create and destroy life, and even manipulate time itself. Basically, he's the ultimate cheat code. He can teleport anywhere in the world instantly, which means he never has to deal with traffic. And he's virtually indestructible, so you can forget about trying to fight him. He can create objects out of thin air, he can even raise the dead. That's literally just scratching the surface here. Dr. Manhattan's powers also extend to his sense of time. He has a complete understanding of time as a linear concept, meaning he can see the past, present, and future all at once. This makes it easy for him to predict events and make strategic decisions. In other words, he's always the smartest guy in the room, always multiple steps ahead of everyone around him. And then another thing that makes Dr. Manhattan truly powerful is actually his complete detachment from his emotions. Believe it or not, he doesn't feel happiness, he doesn't feel love, he doesn't even feel hatred or anger, he just doesn't feel. And because of that, it actually allows them to make decisions and take actions that would be impossible for pretty much any hero in the DC universe. And sometimes that's not always the best thing. Remember how Manhattan has a completely different view of time than we do? How he can see time as an actual concept and perceive the past, present, and future all at the same time? About how he can exist in all time, everywhere, all the time, literally being in every timeline at once? Well, this allows him to play out alternate timelines, see the future and the past, and how it all plays out. And not just that, but actually allows him to manipulate different events and change the course of history. Like he could prevent Jor-El from dying in Krypton's explosion, that sort of thing. He can change the outcome of any fight or battle, even change the course of your own personal life. Obviously, this makes him insanely powerful in DC, but it doesn't just stop there. Because he doesn't just manipulate events within the timeline. Manhattan can actually manipulate whole timelines, which leads us to Flashpoint and the New 52. Flashpoint is a massive comic book crossover event that has some pretty major implications for the DC universe. In the story, The Flash, Barry Allen travels back in time to save his mother's life. But in doing so, he accidentally creates a new timeline where the world is drastically different from what he remembers. Superman was captured by the US government as a baby, Bruce Wayne was shot in that alley, and Thomas Wayne became Batman. Atlantis and Themyscira were at war with each other. The world is basically a shit show. And so Flash tries to reverse it and set everything right. But that didn't really work out that way. Instead, the New 52 was formed, a major reboot for DC Comics and their continuity. A lot of characters had their histories and backstories altered and rewritten. A lot of the major events and storylines for DC were just wiped out. And Superman stopped wearing his underwear on the outside of his pants. Only turns out none of this was the Flash at all. He didn't cause any of this. It was actually Dr. Manhattan. He was the cause behind Flashpoint, and casually was able to destroy that whole universe. He was the one who managed to remove 10 years from the main DC timeline and start the New 52 universe, basically using it as his own petri dish and science experiment as he explored the nature of time and all its causalities. Of course, this couldn't last for forever, and when it came to an end, a lot of unintended consequences came along with it. And that's Doomsday Clock right there. The events of Doomsday Clock take place in the aftermath of the DC Rebirth event, which saw the return of Wally West and all the other characters who had previously been erased from DC continuity. Things are beginning to set themselves back to the proper balance of things, and it's revealed that Dr. Manhattan is the one responsible for all these changes to the DC timeline, the puppet master behind the scenes, playing everybody and manipulating everything. And obviously our heroes aren't too happy with this. They don't really like being played like that, so they try and stop Manhattan from manipulating their world. And Manhattan basically beats half the heroes with just a wave of his hand. He easily absorbed the Green Lantern's powers. Magic is just a statistical anomaly to him that he can easily manipulate. Literally no hero could stand in his way. I mean, sure, they tried, but they all failed. Because, of course they did. This is a literal god they're facing down. And not like how Wonder Woman is a goddess, or Superman is just as powerful as a god. Literally a god. Capital G kind of god. Basically, no one could beat him. Only way Doomsday Clock ended was with Manhattan realizing the error of his ways and restoring the memories and histories of all the different characters who had been affected, effectively ending the New 52 continuity. But you want to know how he did this? Well, he took the DC Metaverse, a single unique universe, and destroyed the whole thing, then restarted and kicked it off again, this time without him intervening. He ultimately decided to leave the DC universe altogether, believing it was better to leave it alone to heal on its own. Molecule Man started out as originally just a poor nobody named Owen Reese, but after a freak lab accident at work, he was transformed, given the power to manipulate matter and molecules, and he could do this on an astronomically massive scale, becoming one of the most powerful and most insane beings in the entire Marvel multiverse. Molecule Man has pretty much every single power in the book. He can literally do anything that he wants. But this all stems from the power to manipulate molecules. Molecules which make up everything. All of creation. Now, Molecule Man does tend to vary in power sometimes. His power level actually really heavily depends on his mental or emotional state, or even different mental blocks that he would have put on his own mind without him even knowing it. It explains how at his lower moments, he's been defeated by the Sentry via Sentry's own molecule manipulation. Of course, in that same fight, Molecule Man was able to beat Sentry several different times, and the Avengers too. But that's neither here nor there. That's Molecule Man at his weakest. But at his best, he's able to fight against the Beyonder. Now, we've learned about him a lot more since he first came out, with the Beyonder being the most famous out of all the Beyonders, a race of omnipotent beings who live outside and above the Marvel multiverse. And in actuality, well, this Beyonder's not truly a supreme being, but a failed cosmic cube that had been born too early and had to go back through different layers of birth to become a true Beyonder. Ultimately, though, that doesn't matter, because at the time of Secret Wars, well, the Beyonder was meant to be the god of Marvel, and he was still insanely powerful, said to be an infinite dimensional being that existed as the entirety of an endless universe. And Molecule Man was able to battle against him, launching out blasts that could destroy several billion different dimensions and universes, matched against the Beyonder in a fight that caused tremors all over the multiverse and blocked attacks from the Beyonder that were able to destroy all of infinity. And at the end, while Molecule Man managed to fix the Beyonder's multiverse-wide destruction and proved that he was stronger than every other being in the multiverse, even cosmic abstracts. Then Molecule Man showed off some more insane power during the Secret Wars event too, because here we had to talk about God Emperor Doom. And God Doom is a beast. He's an outer-versal being. He managed to defeat Black Panther with the Infinity Gauntlet. He killed Cyclops, who was in possession of the Phoenix Force, killed and beat pretty much every other hero in his way. He took over the multiverse with just a thought. God Doom took the power of the Beyonders. We already talked about them and just how powerful they are, scaling well above every single abstract being in all of Marvel, except for it to only turn out that the true source behind all of God Emperor Doom's power is, you guessed it, Molecule Man himself. Molecule Man is the guy who was able to kill the Beyonders and absorb their power into himself, proving he's powerful enough to kill abstracts with just a thought, or even create entire omniverses just by will. Yeah, Molecule Man is a beast. He's one of the best and biggest godlike beings out there. So, who wins? Well, let's break it down. Now, as I hope I've made it clear, these guys, two men who started out as just lab assistants, well, they're two gods within their respective universes. They're like the gods of gods, and they're both able to do literally anything and everything that they want. And so a fight like that, well, it really kind of relies a lot on scaling within their cosmic hierarchies. Because, I mean, yeah, both of them can destroy the Avengers or the Justice League or anything like that. That's lowball stuff for them. Absolutely. But what about them at their best? Well, for Dr. Manhattan, his best showing would probably be where the Darkest Knight took over Batmanhattan and fought Perpetua. Now, this isn't the original Dr. Manhattan. Let's just make that clear. Instead, this takes place in Dark Knight's death metal and is considered a Batman version of Dr. Manhattan, a Batman Hatton. Still, it shows how powerful any Dr. Manhattan can be. Basically, what happens is that there are all these twisted and dark versions of Batman from the dark universe. They're all evil and disturbed, but the worst one out of all of them, and their leader, is the Batman who laughs. Well, Wonder Woman killed this one, but it wasn't the end of him. See, he's always got contingencies on contingencies on contingencies. He is Batman, after all. And one of his contingencies was he had found a Bruce Wayne out there in the multiverse who came into contact with the comedian's button, had decided to study it, building an intrinsic field generator of his own. Well, while he was in the middle of experimenting, the Batman who laughs locked him in the machine, with the resulting accident giving Bruce powers similar to Dr. Manhattan. After Bruce was able to reform his body months later after the accident, the Batman who laughs lobotomized him before he could gain omnipotence and stored him away for a rainy day. And now, his loyal lieutenants, along with some surgical help from some evil Alfreds, were able to put the Batman who laughs brain inside the body of Bruce Wayne, who is a being of pure energy. They were able to resurrect him, and he got Dr. Manhattan's powers along the way. So now Batman who laughs has the powers of Dr. Manhattan, becoming the Darkest Knight. And even though this is arguably a filtered down or inferior version of the original Dr. Manhattan, it was still enough power to attract the attention of Perpetua. And now, who's Perpetua? You might be asking. Well, she's one of the hands from the greater Omniverse. She was the first creator of the multiverse, when the mother of the Monitor, the Anti-Monitor, and the World Forger. And you know what? Perpetua, the literal creator of the multiverse, in the darkest night, they fight. And this Batman with the powers of Dr. Manhattan is able to beat her. And in that fight, well, it was said that their clash raged across all levels of reality, that the stories of the multiverse were tearing apart because of them. And the darkest night won that fight. When Wonder Woman shows up, she's now amped up with the powers of Dr. Manhattan too, which is just crisis and connective energy, the same stuff that's used to create multiverses. She's able to beat the Darkest Night in a fight that spans from the creation of the multiverse to the very end of the multiverse. But then there's Molecule Man, and he's got the power of the Beyonders. He was able to kill all the Ivory Kings and steal their powers. For as powerful as Perpetua is, the Ivory Kings should have her beat. The Beyonders should be more powerful. Now, Perpetua has some great feats, like she was able to fight against and beat the Ultra Monitor, a fusion of her 3 children. The Monitor, the Anti-Monitor, and the World Forger. But just like with her son, the Anti-Monitor, it looks like Perpetua actually needed tools to finish her mission of destroying the multiverse and starting over and creating a new one. Perpetua had all these tuning forks that captured the psychic energy of people from Earth Zero, and it's their agony that keeps her powerful enough to finish the job of destroying universe after universe and tearing down the Orrery of Worlds and starting over from scratch. And also, the DC multiverse is actually a lot smaller at this time than it normally is. There are only 6 Earths left in the multiverse here. And she needed psychic amping to tear down the Orrery of Worlds, which is just 52 universes. Basically, Perpetua is very powerful, and she is multiversal. Still, then the Beyonders are more powerful. Like, the Beyonders were able to kill Multi-Eternity, a trans-finite being. So basically, a higher infinity above infinity. The Beyonders killed him. They also managed to kill the Living Tribunal, a 16th dimensional being. Just 3 Beyonders were able to kill all the Celestials. When the original Beyonder became an adult, and on par with the other Beyonders, he was able to liberate himself from the bindings of the One Above All and escape from the House of Ideas, reaching a state of freedom above Marvel Comics. It's kind of like ascending to true Buddhahood. Molecule Man killed all these guys and stole their power, holding all their combined power inside of himself. That's not his only insanely impressive feat. Like, there's Cubit, a god who easily beat the Beyonder at a different point in time, nearly crushed the entire Beyond realm in his bare hands. Cubic was still scared of Molecule Man and said that Molecule Man's potential surpassed his own. Lifebringer Galactus was a very powerful version of Galactus that served as an inner working fundamental force of the Omniverse itself. Well, this Galactus said that Molecule Man could destroy him with a thought. Molecule Man can even easily create an entire Omniverse, taking the entirety of the 8th cosmos, put it in a box. Molecule Man is an absolute beast. For as powerful as Dr. Manhattan is, there's really just no debate here. Molecule Man could destroy him with ease. It's not even close.